All right, welcome back. Again, it was a long break between videos, lots of very stressful things going on, so haven't been able to record. Training has been somewhat below par, but we're back and trying to get into a really good rhythm of training. I've actually signed up for my very first HYROX. We're going solo. I'm going open to begin with, just because it's the first time, with the intention one day of doing pro, but we're going to go straight in with open, which means I need to sort out my running. The rest of the movements in HYROX, I'm fairly confident in doing. I've been doing these in CrossFit for 5+ years, but the running is something that I don't particularly enjoy doing, but I know I need to get better at if I'm going to get my target time at HYROX, which is sub 110. So today's vlog, we'll talk about how I plan on balancing all of that while still doing CrossFit training, and how we're going to make sure that during each day and each week, everything is setting us up to get into that HYROX while still maintaining all of the skills for CrossFit. I am in the middle of Marbella qualifiers at the moment, and I do have my eye on other CrossFit competitions as well as some strength numbers that I'm trying to get. So I'm not going to go straight into solo just doing HYROX training, because I think A, I'll get bored very quickly, and B, I've got other goals. So it's trying to balance it all, increase my running, and most importantly, not get myself injured. So we're just about to head to the gym. I'm going through my pre-workout meal now, but that leads me on to the first factor when trying to balance all of this in training, is getting your nutrition dialed in. So having worked with a nutrition coach for the last 3 or 4 months, I've really been emphasizing getting carbs in and timing them around my training. So making sure that I get a good boost of carbs about an hour before I train to make sure that I've got the right energy. So this pre-workout meal, we are going with granola, a banana, and a saurine bar. Now that is going to be plenty of carbs. There's 19 grams in there. I'm not sure how much is in a banana, but there's some good sugars in there as well. And then in the granola, we're looking at 1 portion with another 25 grams. So we're looking, there's probably 2 portions in there if I'm being completely honest, but we're looking at around 60 to 70 grams of carbs right before we go into training. Now, whilst you all know about your nutrition, I'm sure, getting that timing right, especially when we're balancing multiple different things and we're trying to be a bit more hybrid, is going to be really, really important. And getting your carbs in to give you the energy you need to hit those sessions, especially these kind of HYROXy sessions where you're going to be using lots more energy at a higher intensity, is going to make a massive difference when we're trying to bring it all together and make sure that we're not getting injured and we're still making good progress in the gym. So I'm going to smash through this now. We're going to let it settle, and then we're going to head off to the gym for today's strength session. And then later on, we've got the running session, which we're starting to incorporate into our week's programming. So going into the strength session for today and talking about what you need to consider when we're balancing everything and we're trying to have that kind of hybrid training program. And that's going to be your balance, about what you're putting into your programming across the whole week. So today we had lots of technical work in our weightlifting. So we started off with some high hang work, moved into some hang work, and then into some full work. But this was all power snatches. We weren't working through full squat snatches. We were being careful about the amount of volume that we're putting through the legs, and just making sure that today the focus was on technique and building up gradually as you went through. So finished off with doubles. So the doubles were at 79 kg. I'm not sure what the pen conversion is, but happy enough with that. We're talking like 80-85% of my 1RM here. So this is something that we can kind of repeat and go through, and it's not going to tax the legs too much, because we then moved into back squats, and that's our main strength piece for today. If we'd already gone through some squat snatch work and we'd already pre-fatigued the legs, then we were going to be in a very fatigued position coming into this part here, and then obviously that leads on to what we're doing later on with the running. So this part was 5, 3, 1. So we did 2 sets of 5, 2 sets of 3, and 2 heavy singles, just back squats on their own, and looking to build up the strength again in the legs because it has been somewhat lacking. So I was really happy in the end to be able to hit 151 kilos for a single at the end. This is the heaviest I've squatted in, we're probably talking 8 or 9 months now, so happy with how that felt. And then finished off with some upper body accessories, so dips and rows, all body weight, but this is really good for the gymnastics work. It's also fairly low intensity in terms of the amount of stress you're putting on your body, so it's a good way to finish before we go into second session and lots of running later on this afternoon. So first session done. I've actually been back a few hours now, so I've eaten again, and I'm about to have another pre-workout snack, I guess, going into the second session, which is going to be the running. We're going on a treadmill today because it is starting to creep into 40 degrees here in Abu Dhabi, and I really don't want to run outside in that. So getting used to the treadmill and getting used to being indoors and running is going to take me a few weeks. I definitely prefer running outside if I'm going to have to run. But what it does mean is I can get a pace kind of set and just get used to cruising in that pace. So today is the volume session. We're going to split running into 2 sessions across the week. So this is just building up volume and just adding in kilometers every week at a steady and consistent pace. So today we're just going in for 6K, again getting used to running on the treadmill, going at a conversational pace that we can hold and maintain for the whole 6K, and just getting some kilometers in the legs. Then later on in the week we have a threshold or interval session, and this is where we're going to have different distances at different paces to help build up more pacing awareness and basically improve that capacity. And that is the third and final point about trying to manage training when you're adding in HYROX kind of prep to everything else that you're doing, is not going flat out fast and all the running you can possibly do straight away. I've got almost 12 weeks going into HYROX, and I'm steadily going to build up that volume, steadily going to build up that pacing so that my body can adapt and improve and grow as those 12 weeks go on. If you suddenly go from 0 to 100 with your running as you go into this HYROX prep, you're going to get injured, you're going to get sick of running very, very quickly, and you're not going to be able to gradually progress and make strides. See what I did there? With your running as you come into HYROX. So that's definitely the third and final piece that you need to consider if we are taking on HYROX, but we're still doing other elements and we're trying that kind of hybrid way of training. Okay, that is it for today's video. A little bit shorter, but hopefully we can get back into a bit of a routine with training and filming. So getting some more content, especially going into this HYROX prep, so I can share that kind of journey with you guys and you can see what it's like for a non-runner to actually compete and try and do a HYROX. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a comment, leave a like, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button because I will see you in the next video.